Hey guys, so I thought a lot about what I wanted to talk to in today's vlog, and one topic stood out to me a lot, and that was the topic of the shooting last week on Valentine's Day. It actually happened only a couple of hours from where I live. The school was called Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and it's over in Broward County, which is down kind of close to Miami, I believe. I've never been, or if I have, it's been many, many years. And shootings at school are a touchy subject for anyone. So before I go any further, I just want to say, if this is a topic that is difficult for you to listen to or hear about, then please skip this video. Keep your best interests at heart. Please don't watch this if this is going to upset you or trigger you in any way. I will not be mad at you. I understand entirely. But having said that, school shootings are it's a topic that hits close to home. When I was in 6th grade, we had a lockdown because a student at the high school, his dad came up to the school and shot the football coach for not letting him be on the team or play on the team or something like that. And so the entire school district had to go on lockdown. And so I was 12, maybe 13 at the time, and I'm 25 now, so that was 12, 13 years ago. And I still think about that day. That was back before there were really plans in place, because school shootings were not nearly as frequent as they are now. And I just remember we had a little folder system, and all the teachers would go to the doors and they'd hold out different colored folders for what kind of drill or whatever was happening. And I think it was a red folder. And I remember it was really quiet that day, and it was just one of those days. And I was right by the door in the class that I was in. And so I saw her hold the folder out. I didn't know what it meant at the time. And it just kind of got quiet. And the teacher was like, okay, we all need to go to the back of the room. And that room was one of the worst rooms to be in. There were windows all along the back side of the classroom. It was an old building, so the windows were like up off the ground, not like a whole wall of windows. But then the door was in the front, and it had like a little like window pane where you could see in the classroom. So there wasn't really anywhere in that classroom that we could technically not be seen. And we had to be in there the entire day. If we brought our own lunches, we couldn't go get our lunches. It was one of the scariest moments of my life. We couldn't even leave the room to go to the bathroom unless the teacher went with us and made sure that it was clear and everything was okay. It was certainly, I'll never forget it. And I know it's, anytime my mom hears about a shooting, she immediately goes back to that day, and I do too, because luckily no one else was hurt in the shooting at my school. It was just the coach. And eventually, I'm pretty sure they got the guy. This was a big deal. Like, it was on the news everywhere. The coach survived, and he went on to coach, I think, like, college football. And his son was really involved in football as well. So he, like, went on. I think there's something about a movie that might be happening about the shooting. I have heard rumbles about it, but don't really know anything for certain. And so I've kind of had experience. It's not at all like students these days are facing, but it's something that to some degree I have experienced. And so hearing about this shooting last Wednesday was it's just, it happens so much these days. And no one seems to want to do anything about it. And that's terrifying because these children, these kids, these babies are our future. And no one seems to want to do anything. All anyone ever does, Congress, the president, in this administration, all they ever say is thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. Trump even made a tweet trying to turn it back on the fact that we were focusing on Russia instead of focusing on our school systems. And that's why the shooting happened. And it's just, it's so frustrating because something needs to be done. And 90% of the American population don't want to do anything because they don't want their guns taken away. And it's one of those things. I grew up in the country, so everyone around us had guns. We never felt the need for guns. And I feel like guns shouldn't be the normalcy of any kind of life. Like, I know a big push these days is to have the teachers armed in the classroom in case anything like that happens. But when I think about that, I just read an article the other day that compared that to Chris Kyle. He was the one the movie American Sniper was based off of. He and a buddy went to a shooting range with another friend, all war buddies. This other friend that they went with, Chris Kyle knew he was unstable. There were text messages about it, about whether or not they should even go. But they went. This guy, using Chris Kyle's own weapons and everything, shot Kyle and the guy that came with him. So it's these people, he's a sniper. He's been trained for years on how to handle guns and how to combat with guns. And this guy still killed him. So if there's someone that is trained to know how to use a gun and can still get killed, what do they think is going to happen to a teacher that maybe has a 6-hour course on how to hold a gun and use a gun? How do they think that's going to be any different? And, like, I understand that they think that's the answer, but I personally just, I don't think so. And then there's always the possibility that the student or whoever that comes in is going to be able to wrestle that gun away from the teacher, and then they'll have another gun in their arsenal. And I think the main thing that a lot of people are like, oh, it's our Second Amendment right. The Second Amendment was written when guns held one shot and it took 5 minutes to clean it back out and reload it before you could shoot it again. Now we have these automatic rifles and these machine guns that shoot 50 times more shots per second. And they're like, no, we have a right to have those. You don't. You really don't. Those are military-grade weapons. And sometimes I feel like the military shouldn't even have those. But that's a personal thing. But any normal 20-year-old citizen shouldn't be having a machine gun or an AR-15 or anything like that. That should not be an option for anyone that has not had military training. And another thing that people talk about is, oh, well, gun control will never work. I have done my research on some gun control around the world. Basically, America sucks, and they just don't want to lose their guns. Australia had a mass shooting in 1996. They had stricter gun control. They have not had, I think, maybe one mass shooting since then. And it's 2018, so 26 years ago, 28 years ago. But we've had 30 in the month and a half since 2018 has started. Another one that I also had heard about and did further research into was Japan. Japan has a very extensive process in order to be able to own a gun. And I didn't know much about it, so I looked up more about it. And they have ways to be disqualified from getting a gun. And that includes being under the age of 18, if you've declared bankruptcy, if a person has lost or may lose full mental ability, addicted to alcohol or drugs, feeble-minded person, a person without a fixed home. So there's all these different things. And I believe Japan is also the one where they have to go through like a course. And it's like not like some like day-long course. It's like months of learning about the gun and how to use the gun and everything like that. And the kicker is you cannot keep the ammunition with you. It has to be somewhere else. And you can't keep it with the gun or anything like that. It is separate. And they have not had hardly any problems with mass shootings or anything like that. Or even their suicide rate has even gone down because of these stricter gun laws. And countries all over the world have systems like this where they make it harder to get guns, or they make it harder to get the ammunition for guns, and you have to like go back and repeat the process of getting your first gun every so often so it's refreshed in your memory. And people don't like having to go through this whole process again and again, so it's making people less likely to own guns. And every country, well, I don't want to say every country because I haven't researched that much, but a lot of countries do this, and they don't have anywhere near the kind of problem that America is having. And so if America would just stop and think and listen and learn from these other countries, our problems, all these school shootings would go down so much. But people are so afraid of losing their guns. They're afraid that gun control means taking everyone's guns. And that's not it. We just want to make it harder for people to get, especially those that shouldn't have one. And on that note, mental illness has become a big factor in these shootings. But if you pay attention, it's only when the shooter is white. Anytime it's a person of color, anyone besides a white person, you never hear mental illness. But as soon as it's a white boy, that's the main concern. Oh, he has mental health problems. And everyone that's like, oh, it's just a mental health problem. That's what this problem is, not guns. It's a people person. It's a mental health problem. No. It's not. Anytime you say that, you're just telling anyone that you know that has mental illness that you think they're going to be violent one day. I did a silent sit-in on campus. UCF was great about this. I found out about this the day before. They had a silent sit-in in the middle of the student union. I have pictures. I will put those in here. And we have this big insignia on the floor in the student union, and it's roped off. Something about bad luck if you cross over it before you graduate. And so what they did was they had papers it had different names of different people that had died at school shootings. And they had school shootings, other kinds of shootings. There were names from Pulse there in Orlando. There was, the name I got was from Virginia Tech. All kinds of different names. And I went between class when I had free time, and I sat out there for a little over an hour, and the entire mood was just solemn, and it wasn't as effective at first because there were only about 5 or 10 people, and the circle wasn't even really like surrounded. We were sitting around that little insignia, and by the time I was getting ready to leave, that insignia had people all the way around it and some coming off of it. And it's hard to see people distinctly not look at you or distinctly look at your sign and then look away. It makes them uncomfortable. And it is an uncomfortable topic. We shouldn't have to be talking about our children being shot in schools where they're there to learn. But unfortunately, that's a reality these days, and it shouldn't be. And that's why we sat there, to let people know that we are not forgetting these people, that we refuse to be desensitized, even though these shootings are happening more and more frequently. And I'll never forget, I was sitting there. I had my sign with a name on it, and then I made my own sign. On one side it said, "Stop gun violence," and on the other side it said, "Protect our children." And I believe it was the Protect Our Children side that was being held up with my name. And this lady comes by. She's kind of reading over the signs as she walks, and she kind of stops right in front of me and she goes, "You know it's actually a mental illness problem, right?" And I just kind of looked at her, and it's a silent sit-in, so, we're not saying anything. The whole point is to not get wrapped up into arguments with people that are passing by or looking at us. And I just kind of stared at her, and finally she walked off to talk to the leader of the group that was doing this sit-in. And I just cried because I have mental illness, and anytime I hear that this is a mental illness problem, it's kind of like a knife in my chest, because it's kind of like, great, one day someone's gonna think that I'm gonna snap and do something like this, and that's not the case. Most mentally ill people never think about hurting other people. Themselves, sure. If you have depression and anxiety, sometimes it feels like you're the person that needs out. You're the one that deserves pain and hurt. No one that I have ever met with a mental illness would ever think about using that excuse to hurt others. And eventually this lady came back by as she was leaving, and she's being a heckler, and she just keeps staring at the group of us, "Oh, I really think it's great that you guys are sitting here and doing this." She walks a little bit. "I just wanted you guys to know that this is a mental illness problem. That's what I think." She walks a little bit. "But I do appreciate what you guys are doing." She walks a little bit further. "Okay, well, bye." I don't know what she expected us to do or what she expected us to say. It is a silent sit-in. We're not going to be drawn in by your attempts to get us to argue and yell and scream. And that hour that I sat there was some of the most emotionally tense moments that I have ever had. And there's a picture that a student took of me, and it's in an article. I'll link the article at the bottom in the comments, or in the description. And there's a picture of me, and I knew it was being taken at the time, but I didn't realize how strongly my emotions were going to come out in that picture. And I saw the article this morning, and I saw that picture, and I just kind of oh my gosh, it didn't even look like me. And I'll post that picture in here. I don't know if I'll be able to weave it in the little bottom corner, or if I'll have to put it in after this video of me talking. But it was rough. It was a very rough hour. And as the time went on and there were more of us there, it got harder to ignore us. And this happened to be a day that a bunch of middle schools and touring groups were coming in to look at the school. And I had to sit there. These little 8 and 9-year-olds, maybe older, are sitting here looking at me holding this sign with some girl's name on it. And I could not look them in the eye at that point, because I felt like I had let them down. And it was so hard, and I will never forget how it felt to sit there and see all of these people just casually walking by like it was no big deal. Okay, I think that about does it for my opinion on gun control and stuff. So I apologize. I got kind of emotional there towards the end, but yeah, it was rough. So next week's video, I promise, is gonna be more lighthearted. If I can figure out how to save a video from Facebook, I have a video of the flash mob that we did for Valentine's Day for the UCF Victim Services to help stand up against relationship violence and abuse and stuff like that. So if I can figure out how to get that video saved to my computer, I will definitely put that up in the video, and I'll talk a little bit about the dance, because that in and of itself was an amazing experience that I'm also glad that I got to be a part of. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, comments, ideas, concerns, your own stories that you want to share, please leave them down below in the comments. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful week, guys. Bye.